All right, welcome to the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, November 9th. Before we get started, would you please stand with me and let's salute the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and our first order of business for 7 p.m. is a change of management liquor applications, Mall Liquors, 10 Main Street. Do we have any representative? Please. Yeah, have a seat and just name and address for the record, and then just state your what you're looking for.
So it's name of business?
Yes, please.
Okay, it is 10 Main Street in Tewksbury, Massachusetts.
Okay, and your name? I'm sorry.
Alexander Bueller.
Okay. And what are you seeking tonight from the board?
I think they're just changing my name onto the license for managing operator.
Okay. And currently, what's your capacity? What's your capacity currently right now for the?
I am their store manager.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, this is not a public hearing, so what we just do is we want to get insight as to what you're looking for, and I'll bring it to the board for questions. I can assure for you and for the residents, the paperwork is in line. It goes through a series of folks within the town and the ABCC Commission, so I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions, concerns from the board. Ms. Wellman?
I have no questions or concerns at this time.
Very complete packet, thank you.
Well, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, no questions. Looks good.
Mr. Mackey?
No questions.
Easy board tonight. Okay, with that being said, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the change of manager for Mall Liquors at 10 Main Street.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 5-0. Thank you very much. Congratulations, thank you.
Okay.
All set.
That's
Yep.
it.
All right.
You'll get the
Painless, painless.
Anything you have to sign or anything, or?
Nope, we're good to go.
Nope.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Already signed.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller.
All right, very good. All right, our next order of business is 7:05. So what we have for 7:05 is the Tewksbury North and Trahan School Reuse Committee. What we'd like to do is just kind of get in front of the board, explain what we're doing and kind of next steps, and just to see if we get your gears going as far as if you have any thoughts on what we're doing as far as our process and or just overall thoughts about the parcels itself. So what I'm going to do is I'll take my selectman hat off and I'm going to join. I think we have one member of the committee we tried to get, but it was a tough night for our members, and so that's okay. So I think we're good to go. Yeah, sure, please. All right, so short and sweet, like I said, what I'd like to do is, we are part of the Tewksbury, and just for the residents alike, we're part of the Tewksbury North and Trahan School Reuse Committee. And just to summarize, we were building a brand new spanking elementary school, so that put us in a very good position to have 2 schools/parcels available to do whatever we want. So this committee is going in with first off, I should introduce the committee. We have Lorna Garrity, we have Kayla Smith, we have Mr. Bob Fowler, we have Kristen Smith, we have Ken Duffett, and myself representing the board. So that's our committee, and we're actually going to have another member of the Open Space Committee, but they have to vote to make it official, and the board also voted to add a member of the Open Space Committee to this committee, which is cool. So we're gonna have 8. So what we're going to be doing here in the short term is outreach to all the boards and committees. We did start with the Open Space Committee. Hey, there's another member of our committee. You're good. Maybe just a quick intro? Name?
Hi, Ken Duffett, member at large.
Very good. So we started with the Open Space Committee, got a lot of great feedback, and what we wanted to do today is kind of plant the seed with you all of what we're doing and kind of next steps for the near term and longer term. We do meet on the 1st and 3rd of every month. This is outreach. Folks, we don't have any fancy PowerPoints right now to talk about the different parcels. We're going to get into that down the road, but this is more of, hey, here's what we're doing and here's next steps. We're not overly concerned with zoning. Right now, both parcels are zoned, I believe, for municipality zoning. But this committee decided, let's go in with a blank canvas. So just because it's zoned for X, maybe through this committee, and ultimately the town and the residents are going to vote, not this committee, maybe we look at a zoning change for these two particular parcels down the road. So keeping a very open mind, nothing's off the table. And again, just for the residents' sake, whatever we decide for options, and everyone's going to like options, both for the Trahan and for the North Street parcels, it's going to go to town meeting ultimately. And they will either vote yea or nay, for whatever options we bring through this committee and through the board for approval, just like all committees. So, did I cover, I know I'm going pretty quick, but did I cover everything, Ken? Bridget, anything to add?
No, I only caught the end, but sounds good to me.
We've consulted with a consultant. We did have a consultant that met with us for an extensive amount of time, maybe a few months. Was able to give us a lot of feedback about the properties, about the valuations, about, just some potential options that other communities have used. Some seemed to apply well, some didn't, but we took all the feedback, all the information. We've just been gathering a lot of information so far.
And like I said, we're really going to do the residents outreach, and we're going to do a lot. I'm talking a lot. We want to have like 5 to 10 sessions. We're thinking going to the senior center and the library. Other committees have done that in the past to solicit feedback. And if we get enough feedback, perhaps we take that down, we even have a vote, a polling vote, if you would, in April, a non-binding vote, saying, hey, for the Trahan parcels, here's some options to give our committee direction as to where we want to go for those parcels. So again, blank canvas, leaving nothing off the table. Just for a few snippets, I guess, we did get a price for both demolitions for both schools, about $1.5 million for both schools to be ultimately demoed. However, with COVID, that could be a heck of a lot higher based on materials, and God forbid there's nasty materials in those buildings. It could be significantly higher. We did look at repurposing those schools, but we can tell you both for the North Street and the Trahan, every system, every subsystem, heating, electrical, roof, no more Band-Aids. Those schools are 60, 70 years old. That's why we're in this situation. So we did look at repurposing, and that was a big price tag, north of $10 million each. I mean, again, that's why we kind of voted as a community for the new elementary school. So, again, enough about me talking. Let's open up to the board. Maybe you can give us direction on, have you thought about this, how to proceed, or just get right in, hey, something, I thought about A, B, or C for those particular parcels. So again, very open conversation, not looking to take too much of your time, but at least we want to get in front of you and update the residents kind of our plan. So now you're the chair, Ms. Wellman. Direct the board.
I thought you were going to walk back.
Yeah, I thought he was going to chair it as
No,
well.
my hat's
Okay,
off.
sit both seats. Does anybody have any comments for the committee?
I'll just offer, thank you for coming in and at least initiating the conversation. I am not close enough to it yet to have an opinion. I'm looking forward to hearing what the viable options are, right? Because no doubt there are a number that won't work for various reasons. So I trust that the committee's going to narrow the realm of possibilities down to some that are viable for the community to consider, and I welcome that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just to Mr. Johnson's point, we've kind of solicited feedback when you go to Market Basket or wherever you go. This committee we've heard everything from cemeteries to dog parks to YMCAs. I mean, a lot of great ideas, but to Mr. Johnson's point, we're going to have to vet those out through the community, through the residents, and get a short list and see what's viable or not. But again, we don't want zoning to kind of hinder our thought process. I can say as a community, we're very fortunate where, again, we're always Tewksbury, but you look around different communities, they would be desperate for parcels to build municipal buildings. So outside of the DPW and the school maintenance facility, we're pretty good as far as buildings in town. Now, maybe that's going to change in 10 to 20 to 30 years, but we're pretty fortunate as a whole through this community where we're not in desperate need like other communities. So we try to keep that in mind as well. So we've heard the whole gamut from what folks might want, and again, as we solicit feedback, we'll prioritize those and see what may or may not work. So,
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. So one quick thought. Again, I am not close enough. I know you guys have been doing a lot of information gathering, but my primary concern is making sure that we're not considering selling this land. Again, we don't get more town land, so I know there's lots of options on the table, but as long as we're not looking at selling, I think that's probably a good starting point.
Yeah, very sensitive point because, the lands are assessed, and listen, this is only assessed value because remember, I want to say it's about 500K plus or minus, and folks are like, how can that land only be 500K? My house is worth that. The point is, we have dwellings there now that need to be removed, you know what I mean? We talked about the demo land, and if something was built there, let's say like a new school, then that property value would be north of X. So right now, they're assessed at that particular value, and that may have changed based on what we put in there, what we don't put in there. And we did get some really good feedback from the Open Space Committee in the fact that there's grants out there potentially to help with demoing, considering that open space. So there's a lot of things out there. That's why we're very keen on bringing a representative from the open space, because that's kind of their strong point. They deal with that throughout the town with different open spaces. So to your point, we've heard from both sides. Residents want to sell to get some money back to the town, but again, whatever options we consider will be thorough. We'll have a slide deck. We'll talk about business case, return on investment for the community. We'll leave no stone unturned. But listen, we've heard, both sides with sell, to help offset taxes, but so we've heard that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Ms. Stronach.
Thank you. First of all, can you just clarify, I want to make sure that I have this right. You're talking 1.5 for each building, not 1.5 for both, correct?
1.5 for each. That was the assessment from the consultant, right?
Yep.
Richard, that was-
I just wanted to make sure that I
Hefty
had
price tag.
that. And I'm going to, as you know, one of the committees that I work on is affordable housing, so I just bring that. I know that you have that, but I will say to you overall, I look forward to your feedback. Being on the elementary building committee, we were very clear in the beginning when we looked to have you all decide what was going to be it, that we were going to take a back seat so that it wasn't looking like one committee was heavily influencing what would happen in those school buildings, because while we believe that the new school building is important and is absolutely needed, as you just described, and what I would say is the MSBA did a survey, and I think that their assessment of those buildings to bring them to code was almost double that 10 million if you wanted to look back into that record. But we did have to provide that for each of those buildings. And I'm really looking forward to the work that your committee's doing. And I certainly appreciate the openness in which you're approaching the project, because I think that that is a very responsible way to look at it, to say nothing's, let's start with the wish list and then let's see what's actually practical. So I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback at the end. And I have to say that I agree with Mr. Mackey in terms of selling the property. If you look to some of our neighbors where they have done that, they have quite regret in later on for selling those properties. So that's all I have, but thank you very much for the opportunity to engage in the conversation. And twice a month is a lot to me for a committee, so please extend my gratitude to your volunteers who are doing the work and listening, so I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. For my comments, thank you so much for coming. I want to echo my colleagues and thanking you for your service and your work. I know it's a lot of work, and I know you've been working on this for quite a while now through this whole pandemic, and so that's been a complicating factor. I am really excited that you're going to be doing a lot of outreach. I think that's important, and you'll be doing like charrettes or stuff like that with folks when they come in so they can get a sense of what they would like. You'll be able to capture what their thoughts and interests are. And I hope you'll also offer a virtual option for folks who would want to meet in person or consider that as you go forward. I think that might be interesting as well. I appreciate some of the details you've given us tonight on some of the financial implications. As a resident of South Tewksbury and having had children go to the Trahan School and formerly from the school committee, I concur with my colleagues that I hope we do not end up selling that parcel and we preserve it as open space and park space and multi-generational space for our community. It is densely populated in that section of town, and it's so walkable that it's such a great opportunity to develop it as park space. And we can get some technical assistance from NIMCOG that would, part of the work that they can do is do the design plans for what we would want there. So walking tracks, maybe a dog park. There is a playground there already, those kinds of things. But NIMCOG can do that kind of work for us. And that would be on a grant that they would find. So we wouldn't necessarily even have to find a grant to work on that. So that's an option to put in the toolkit to present to folks. And I think it would be such a jewel for the community down there. And as we go forward and we have that land, if we need to add to our subsidized housing inventory, to Mrs. Stronach's point, and build affordable housing, we can plan for that without having to do that right now. There's a lot of traffic impacts in that area as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the community grows, but to have that space set aside would be enormous. So, but that being said, I'm really looking forward to seeing what residents have to say. The folks that are the abutters, people that drive through those communities, those sections of town. And I look forward to also hearing about the North Street side. So I'm not very close to that side of it. So I know that you have members of your committee that know well how it is over there. So I appreciate all your work, and I'll come to one of your outreach sessions and listen. I'm excited. Thank you so much.
In that we are going to meet with the local, once we get the local housing partnership back up. A lot of residents have said that senior housing, veteran housing, 2.5-year waiting list at best.
Yeah.
And we have about, north of $5 million in fee of lieu of. So you kind of think, maybe one of those parcels would be better than the other, because we do have a lot of feedback on the Trehan as an example of putting, some form of senior/veteran housing and not selling the land, but drafting an RFP for a 100-year lease, so to speak, and putting all those restrictions in. That's doable as well. So that's been a pretty hot topic as well, saying, hey, why don't you use some of those funds finally to establish, and you have a bus route up there. But to your point, there's a monstrosity up there now, so the residents aren't too keen either for further development. So it's going to be a balancing act. And getting back to the North Street parcel, there's been a lot of talk about tying in the rail trails, open space. That'd be a nice little area to have a horseshoe almost around the entire community. So again, just sharing some initial thoughts or feedback that the committee has received. So
That's great.
a lot of good ideas coming, and we're going to get a lot more good ideas from the residents. So, and I think we do, people are asking about what our runway is. We do have a nice little runway. I think the school, Ms. Strana, keep me honest here, is set to open the new elementary school in January of 2023.
That's correct.
And that's knocking on wood, bearing any further delay. So we have a little bit of wiggle room here. And even when the schools do move out, we're still going to have a little wiggle room. So I think we have a nice 1.5 or 2 years for our committee to kind of do our outreach now for the next 3 to 6 months, and start really putting things on the table and presenting them in front of the board and the residents. So I think we're a little bit ahead of the game. It's been a little slow going with COVID, but now we're picking it back up as a committee. So looking forward to big things from this committee over the next year. So anything else to add?
No, the only thing I was going to say is opportunities like this are great. The input is fantastic. I mean, we've been doing this now for 1.5 years, and something that we haven't, things that we haven't thought of. Every time we have a presentation like this, or someone new comes in, there's new ideas, which has been fantastic. We just added a new member, Kayla, who came first meeting and threw something out there about, talking about the hatch shell down in Medford on Mystic Valley Parkway that has been redone, and used it as kind of a community gathering point. Things like that are great ideas that she brought to the table, and that's 30 seconds into it for her. So all these things add new ideas. It's been fantastic.
Outstanding.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I think I'm super excited to finally reach out to the residents and just really hear what people have to say, because I think there's a lot of people in our community who have great ideas, and we're just looking to put them all together and vet them and see what's reasonable and what can we do.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll see you a week from Thursday.
Bye. See you again.
All right, thank you. I thought that was important to bring in front of the residents and the board, so thank you very much. Cool. All right, our next session, speaking of residents, that's our next session. Would any residents like to offer public comments at this time? No, just for the microphone and just please, so everyone can hear you, that's all, my friend. Thank you.
I do appreciate everybody's time. I did call to make sure that this was the proper setting for an issue that I've been having with the Board of Health and kind of the city where I've been staying.
Okay, so this is what we'll do, and this is public comments, so you can have public comments, we may or may not respond, or typically, if it's like an issue, what we can do is always listen and bring it back to a future agenda, and the reason why is then we get to do homework, we get to know about the issue, so the floor is yours, and just name and address for the record, please.
It was 314 Ames Hill Drive at the lodge at Ames Pond, and basically I've been displaced from that residence since April. And in short order, there was mold found in that apartment after 2 failed remediation attempts. Even with going to the board itself, I'm still in that same predicament. It's taken me time to kind of get the case evidence that I have that states as of June 1st, it's still in that apartment in the air, and it's on the air ducts at a high level. It's a failed remediation report that is coupled with, since that time, I've had allergists tell me that I've had severe mold symptoms that are causing upper and lower respiratory problems. So it's a serious matter that I've gone to the board, gotten zero assistance. I even contacted Steve Sadwick again to kind of ask, you know, at this point with my doctor's note, with the field remediation report, can you still assist? And I'm really not getting any of that.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is, so it looks like the issue's been ongoing with the community, and I think we have heard about, Mr. Montori does send us a weekly report, so what I'd like to do is, again, I'd like to get more information, so my commitment to you is I'll work with Mr. Montori, and whether I bring this on as a future agenda item, or we work through Mr. Montori's office, does that sound reasonable, unless the board has anything else to offer at this time? Does that sound reasonable? So I'll work through Mr. Montori and like I said, whether we bring it back here as a future agenda item or we put it back on, we'll make a decision at that point as far as next steps or to find a path forward, so.
Is there someone that I could get an email to maybe send some of this information to? if it's
Absolutely.
doable? Yeah.
Please send it, and you have Mr. Montori's email? Okay,
And Mr. Chairman, just for
Please.
the record, I didn't catch this gentleman's name.
My
so-
name is Matthew Perry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I do appreciate your time.
thank you.
That's good.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Montori. Any other residents at this time? Okay, seeing none, why don't we jump, we're going to go back. Let's go to new business. New business, special municipal employee application for snowplow on Mr. Stephen Powers. Just for the board, this is common stuff. Mr. Powers works for the police department, so therefore he has to have a waiver. So this is pretty standard stuff, and I can just say, call out to all residents. We're in desperate need for snow plowers. We do have bulletin boards, or not bulletin boards, they're the DPW boards that are lit up, so just to call out to residents, if you have any interest in plowing for the town, please follow up with the town. We're desperate for snow plowers, so, well, what's the pleasure of the board here? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll offer a motion to approve this disclosure, or accept the disclosure from Stephen Powers. And I'll just note for the record, he's a reserve police officer, so I don't believe he's a full-time police
Thank you.
officer.
Okay.
But I know from recollection that Mr. Powers has provided snow plowing services probably for the better part of 10 years. And to your point, we need all the help we can get. So appreciation for his volunteering to do that, and obviously he'll get compensated.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, 5-0. Our next order of business is a tree hearing for South Street. This is a public meeting, so do I have a motion to waive the reading of the public notice?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Unanimous. So first and foremost, what I'm gonna do is have Mr. Gilbert, he is the director of the Tewksbury DPW up, to explain the situation, and then we'll have questions from the board, and then we'll pause and we'll open up if there's any abutters or residents, not abutters, residents that would like to speak on behalf of this particular tree hearing. And then we'll close the public hearing and we'll bring it back to the board. So, Mr. Gilbert, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Let's see, I had sent a memo to the town manager. I believe you've received that in your packet, outlining the situation, but for the residents at home. I received a request for tree removal on South Street from National Grid. This is in association with the upgrade of the National Grid's poles and cables to pull the power from the solar field out at the old landfill. They have to upgrade their infrastructure in order to do so. There are approximately 9 trees that fall within Chapter 87, the shade tree law of Massachusetts, public shade tree law, which is referred to as Chapter 87. We posted the trees. We had a public hearing on October 21st. And under the law, if there's an objection in writing to the removal of the trees, the decision has to come to the Board of Selectmen, and that's why we're here this evening. Like I had said, there were 9 trees involved, and these are trees within the public way. There are trees along the driveway to the solar farm that do not fall within Chapter 87. So this is only with regard to those trees along South Street. And if you know the work zone, it's between Bemis Circle and I'm forgetting the other one now.
Brownsville?
No, it's back by something G. What is it? Regina S. There you go. And so there are 9 trees. I walked the site with the representative from National Grid, Neil Doran, who's here this evening. We inspected each tree with regard to its structure, health, and conflict with the upgrade to the electric system. And we received at the public hearing an objection, as I had indicated, from Mr. Marcini, who's also here tonight. I guess I'm going to let him speak to his own issue. I think in the packet there was the letter. It didn't outline specifically what his objection was. Again, I'll let him speak for himself, but the fact that there was an objection, that's why we're here.
Okay. All right, so we'll pause. Let's open on the board for questions. How about Ms. Wellman?
Thank you. So my understanding is you have kind of a mix of trees here, and there's a variety of issues. So some have root rot, and then diseased trees. They're leaning. So at some of them, I guess we have three or four that have a heavy lean. And these are all, as you said, they're town trees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if they were to damage private property in one way or another, then the town would at some point be liable. Is that correct?
That could possibly be true. There's acts of God with regard to.
Of course there are, yeah, no.
Things of that sort.
No, I understand.
I couldn't.
But if you have evidence if you have evidence of rot or that disease the tree, and then we
And
don't
we
do
know
something
about
with
it,
it,
and
we know
there's-
about it, then
yes,
yeah,
yes.
correct. There's an expectation that the town,
Expectation.
understanding that there's an issue, would address that issue.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all that I'm getting at.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then a couple of these are just really proximity issues to the poles. Can you tell us a little bit about the infrastructure upgrade that National Grid needs to do? Because I know that particular site the Sutton Brook Superfund site was not even eligible for passive recreation because it was so contaminated. And the nature of the remediation on top of it and the cap is not, you can't have people walking on it. So it was designed so we could put solar panels out there and use that space efficaciously. So this isn't my understanding is this is to allow National Grid to actually take the power off that site and then distribute it back into the power grid.
That's correct. I don't know the actual power that they're going to be running through there, but it is a generation site,
Yeah.
not distribution site, which
Right.
is, so the load on those lines, they have certain standards and specifications that they try to work with in terms of conflicts such as trees.
Yeah.
Neil is here tonight. He could probably explain a little bit more in terms of the actual voltage and what have you. But looking at the infrastructure change out there, you're going about anywhere from 5 to 8. I don't think it's 10 feet that they have to go up, but it's at least 5 at a minimum.
Right.
And they have to get, the cross arms are going to be wider. They need a wider span, if you will, of clearance. In some instances, there's one tree out there currently that is, I forget what they call it, but basically there's a insulator around it because it's actually touching the tree.
Oh,
So, and it's tight right there too. You have the
Very narrow.
S-turns and everything through there, so it's difficult to negotiate through. We did take a look at it. I have to say that I've always been very difficult to deal with in terms of taking trees down, the necessity of
I know.
such. And any tree that we could prune back and save, we slated it as such. One thing I did fail to mention is that under our bylaw, anything like this, removal of a tree, National Grid would be responsible for the tree removal, grinding of the stump and cleanup, and then planting a replacement tree. I understand it's only 1-for-1, and we'll be looking at, I'd like to see changes to that. But for now, that's what the bylaw reads, and that's what it is. And through a couple of different projects that I've had with National Grid in the past, we have about 25 trees that they, in essence, if these were to come down, we'd have about 25. And what we would end up doing is flyering that neighborhood and asking the residents in that neighborhood whether or not they want a replacement tree. It'd be first offered. The balance of those 25 trees, if there's, say, 16 left, we would put it out on social media, first come, first serve, to try to get locations, people wanting trees. I or Neil would take a look at the site to make sure that it's suitable for a tree, and we would then choose the species that would be most suited for that particular location. So we have this planned, and over the winter, we'll go through that process and plant trees in the spring.
yeah, I was going to ask you about the replacement trees because that's great. I'm a big fan of street trees, and but there is a balance there that has to be met with homes and private property, and then obviously National Grid.
Right.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. How about Ms. Stronach?
That was very thorough, thank you, I appreciate that. And I do, over the years, have come to love your love of trees, to be
Thank you.
quite honest. So we're talking about 9 trees, but in fact, there are 25 trees that will actually be coming down as part of this project, correct?
I'm not sure if there are 25. I know that there are some along the driveway that are not included in here, and then there are private trees, and I don't know if that's included in the number that you're...
Okay,
Oh, the 25 trees are from, there's 9 trees here,
yeah,
and then there's 16 trees that were associated with the decommissioning of the substation next to the police station. They had to take some trees down to do some
upgrades down toward Old Main Street, I believe it was. And then we had a project over on Marshall Street that they had to upgrade for that project, and there was some trees associated with those removals as well. So between the three projects, including this one, there would be 25 trees replacement.
So, again, I'm going to go back. How many trees besides this 9 are we talking about?
I don't know the number of private trees associated with it. I believe there are approximately 6 pine trees in the driveway that do not fall within Chapter 87.
Okay,
It's
does
on
Neil
town
know?
property, but they do not have to be posted,
Yep.
and they don't have to go through this process.
I understand that. I'm
Okay.
just curious, like, what it is we're talking about in total. I understand that we're only discussing those 9 trees.
Right.
And then my other question is, those other projects, when do we get the replacement trees from National Grid? Are we on hold because of those other 2 projects? Is that something that we're like, okay, we're going to wait until we get all of these? Are there other trees that are going to be coming down? When do we basically able to redo those new trees, the 25 trees that you're talking about?
We'll be doing those in the spring.
Okay. So does Neil know how many trees in total we're talking about for this whole thing? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Thanks for being here.
No problem. Neil Dorn with National Grid. So for this project specifically on South Street, you have the 9 trees that are Chapter 87 trees. You have 6 trees on the driveway that are town-owned, but not Chapter 87, that fall within that Superfund property. And then there are 7 private trees that we negotiate with the individual actual landowner because they're outside the town bounds. The 7 private trees are mostly dead or decaying trees because they're far enough away that they're not a concern for us for clearance, but if we're gonna put up brand new poles, they were trees that were hazardous enough that we didn't wanna see the brand new poles laying on the ground in the next couple of weeks.
And, thank you. And then out of that area, were there other trees that may have fallen into this, that you're like, those were viable trees and they're healthy trees, and so we're not gonna take them down?
Yep,
and just-
everything else is being trimmed. We're not removing everything going down the street. Like Brian said, it's a really tight setup with the corners, which makes it a little harder with the angles that we have to try and get the wire through to deal with the increased voltage from the solar field and the battery storage that are on site. So
I'm
we're
just
almost-
trying to give people at home a visual of what it is that you're trying to do. So you're not saying, okay, it's all the trees. We're taking a look at the trees that we believe are hazardous to the project.
Yep.
Is
So
that a
we do
way
a
to-
tree-by-tree assessment, and if there's something that we can trim, obviously it's more cost-effective for National Grid, and it's also more cost-effective for the people that are paying electric rates.
And just off, an estimate, do you know how many trees are in that span of the project that are going to be remaining?
I know I have at least 9 spans worth of just trimming, so I'd say probably another 15 or 20,
Okay,
just gonna be trimmed.
thank you. I have no other questions. I am looking forward to the residents and hearing from him.
Yep, and those trees from the other projects, that money's already been set aside in a separate account within forestry's budget. So those 16 trees that we already owe the town, that's already set aside, that can't
Okay.
be touched.
Great. Thank you, I appreciate that.
No problem.
Very good. How about Mr. Johnson?
I'm going to reserve my comments and questions, Mr. Chairman, until after I hear from Mr. Mancini.
Good deal. How about Mr. Mackey?
No questions at this time.
Okay. I am going to do the same. So, I mean, it's right in front of us, but, I'm not privy to the situation down there just yet, so I'd like to hear, if there's any residents like to come forward, and then we'll close out the resident portion and bring it back to the board. So, at this time, do we have any residents? Maybe just, just because you might have knowledge. Are there any residents, please? And just name and address for the record, please.
Al Mancini, 15 Kenneth Lane. I am a certified tree hugger, and I'm here basically because I had great conversations with both Neil and Brian, very nice guys, and they did explain it to me in a very simple, compassionate way, and I understand the idea behind sick trees coming down. Okay, I understand about unsafe trees coming down. But part why I'm here is because I see lots of healthy trees coming down. This is my secretary, my daughter. Anyway,
Nice.
So I see lots of healthy trees coming down all over town, and I felt better when Mr. Gilbert explained to me that they get trees back for the trees that get cut down, but by the same token, and I had a conversation with Mr. Mackey before we started, I used to go down Chandler Street all the time, cutting back, pick Bessie up from school. She gets dropped off at Stadium Plaza, and I drive her home. We take the back roads because Main Street, as we all know, is a lot of fun. I have a little 7-year-old, and when we drive on Main Street, he goes, "Do we have to take this road because it's bumpy?" And, you know, you're going bumpy, bumpy. And I understand it's a state road. I get that. So we used to go by Chandler Street, but now I can't bear to go by Chandler Street because it used to be such a nice, quiet place. And I understand what happened. I understand Mr. Mackey gave me a thumbnail on what happened. But I do see an awful lot of construction around town, and as a layman, I don't understand what's happening. I grew up in Somerville, okay? And Somerville is the butt of a lot of jokes because it doesn't have any trees. They cut them all down, okay? And that said, yeah, I moved into Tewksbury 18 years ago. It was a different town 18 years ago. We know this, okay? For somebody who's a lifer, I can imagine what it looks like to you. But for me, I look around and I see construction everywhere I go, and I wonder why it's happening, okay? And I get it. I'm not a dollar guy. I've never been a dollar guy. But my point is, how much of it is necessary of what's happening around here? Because as I say, you can't drive anywhere in Tewksbury without seeing construction of some sort or another. Now, somebody might say that's growth, okay? However, there's also an awful lot of derelict storefronts everywhere you look, okay? There was also a lot of problems getting businesses to come into town. There's also a lot of places that have been...
I understand. We were just going to stay to the...
No, but what I'm
please,
saying is it's
please.
the overview, Mr. Kelly.
I
It's the
understand.
whole
No, I
overview
think-
of the fact that these 9 trees, okay, half of them may be sick. But the truth is, as I said, it's just all I look around and all I see is construction everywhere. And the trees, you know, I mean, I moved to Tewksbury because I like trees, okay? And all I see is so-and-so's tree removal, so-and-so's tree removal. And they're everywhere. I think Tewksbury probably keeps these people in business by himself. That's all I'm saying. And I understand that it is what it is, and I understand that there's things that you can and cannot control. What I can do is I can get up here and I can say something to you and make my voice heard, and then you can do what you can. And this is what I can do, okay? This is what I can do, and I encourage anybody else who thinks the same way as me to say something. Because as I said, Tewksbury's a nice little town. It really is. It's just that, as I say, you know, it's a slalom course to drive on the roads. You know, it's the old joke, I'm not drunk, I'm avoiding potholes. And that's the thing, and that's hard. And as I said, the trees that Mr. Gilbert wants to take down, I understand, some of them are a safety hazard. I don't want a tree to fall on my house, I don't want a tree to fall on anybody's house, okay? But I am saying, are we doing all we can to try to slow the roll of this? And it just looks like there's projects. I understand, Mr. Kelly. I tried to stay on point as best I could.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
And the idea is that I'm just concerned that 20 years from now, when the house that I live in is Bessie's house, what's it going to look like? You know, what's Tewksbury going to look like? And I don't know. I do like the fact that the sanctuary that you guys have on Main Street, the Funland Sanctuary that's been put in. That's a nice sanctuary for animals and trees and stuff. I do like that. 20 years Funland's been derelict. I get it. It's not about trees, Funland, but I am saying that as far as trees go, and I told Ms. Wellman this, I speak for the trees because the trees have no tongue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other residents, any other residents would like to speak? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, so why don't we bring it back to the board? We heard from a resident that was, very good. So let's bring it back to the board. Well, Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got a great overview. I learned a lot. I'm glad to know we're going to be improving our infrastructure so we can be pulling that energy out from our solar area, and that we're trying to contain as much as possible to trees that have damage or are unhealthy. That was something that I did not know prior to this. So given that, I have no questions. I appreciate the overview. I appreciate the resident input, and I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Johnson.
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Wellman, any additional comments? And I'll go to Stronach, then I'll close.
No, I want to add that I too appreciate resident input. I am a fan of street trees, as I've already said. I think it's something that we should continue to keep our mind on. And I've sat in a couple of tree hearings with you, Mr. Gilbert, and I know you to be a fan of trees as well. So I have no further comments.
Okay, very good. How much, Ms. Stronach?
I would just like to thank Mr. Mancini for bringing his daughter to show that everyone does have a voice at the table, and I just appreciate your point of view, and I applaud you for bringing your daughter with you to share that with us. But I have no questions or other comments. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, I just have a few. We always like to think of options. Obvious question, have we considered options, different options?
So they did shrink the footprint originally. It was supposed to be cross-arm construction, shrunk it down to spacer cable to save space on the road, based on how treed it was. That does lead to extra guy wires on the street. So there's trade-offs with that, but that was the route they ended up going. Because of the voltage that's coming out of there, they really need to stay overhead. They have to get the cable a little bit higher off the ground, because between the battery and the solar field, both being able to put charge into the system at the same time, the current voltage on the street is like 7,600, and they're going to be up to 13,800 by the time the project's over. So it's unfortunately just with the lay of that road, there really weren't a ton of options for us. There's a bridge in there with a stream crossing, so there's kind of some tricky spots to get through.
Again, don't speak on behalf of the board. I'm just a single entity of the board. What if this doesn't happen? What are our options?
For National Grid, it doesn't necessarily, it's not our solar field, it's not our solar site. We're just sticking with the mandate that we have from the state to do the cheapest possible hookup to renewable energy for the state. So it would really fall back on whoever owns the solar field.
Okay. Obviously, it's the town. This is our request, right, Mr. Montori? Through you.
Correct. If they, this is their connection to the grid. If they can't go this route and they don't have an alternative route, which I don't believe they do, then the project wouldn't go forward. They've already installed all the panels. There is a financial impact to the community. There will be revenue from a payment in lieu of taxes that will help defray our annual costs for the Sutton Brook operation and maintenance. We are part of a responsible party group that will receive an annual rent or an annual lease of the Sutton Brook landfill. That annual lease will defray the overall operation and maintenance costs also, which we are 24% of the cost of that O&M. So on an annual basis going forward, we will see a savings to the community over 20 to 30 years. But
All right, any other questions, comments from the board? All right, what is the pleasure of the board?
I have a question.
Please.
So what, if we decide, how do I present a motion to this? I'm approving the removal of the trees, is that what I'm actually would be doing, correct? So I would like to make a motion to take down the 9 trees as presented to move the project forward.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All's in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Please.
through you to the town manager, I would like it if we could, for the spring, know where those 25 trees are going. I would be very interested, given the timing of the projects I want, to make sure that we're taking care of those in a timely manner so they're just not sitting in an accrual somewhere at National Grid. So if we could get a follow-up on that, I'd appreciate it.
And did you say we have resident input for those particular trees where they may or may not be placed within the community, within the town?
Yes, as I had indicated, I would look first to the area of impact and ask people out there, do they want a tree? And then if there's a balance left in that, from that 25, I would, trying to get sites in town. And if people don't come and they say, I want a tree, I'm going to put it out there. We have trees, first come, first serve, and we'll have a form that they can fill out or something like that, and then we go out and inspect the site, make sure that it's suitable site for a tree, or we can pick a suitable species for the site. So, until the trees are gone.
So the commitment is residents have input. That's the commitment.
That's absolutely.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? We're good, right? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you very much. Oh, Ms.
I do
Stronach?
have another
Yes,
question,
go
but
ahead.
I would have taken it off. Yeah, I know, you know me too well. So we're looking at maples and oaks here. Is that what gets replaced? Or is it?
Not
or-
necessarily. If a person calls that, in fact, wants, they have the utility line growing or located on this side of the street, we would plant something that wouldn't grow up into the wires and then become a problem in the future.
So what kind of a tree would that be?
I don't know, a linden maybe, or something like, but we would have different suggestions. for
We
them.
can talk, when you come back and give us the update, we can talk about that. I'm just curious, what those are.
Yeah.
I might take you up on a tree.
Right.
Okay, Ms. Wellman?
Now I have a question. I have another question that's related, but kind of not. This 25 trees that you have are funded from National Grid.
That's correct.
Is there any other plan to develop a street tree program in Tewksbury and fund it ourselves?
We could
Annually?
certainly take a look at that. We're doing the budgets now.
Right? We're doing the budget now. Isn't that interesting?
We could certainly look at our existing budget and see if we can move something around or something like that, yes.
I would be interested in a
Yeah.
street tree program.
Okay.
Yeah, the scale obviously would have to be manageable in forestry, but
Right.
yeah. So I think it would be,
Good
that
suggestion.
would be interesting from time to time. It would be good.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next order of business, donations to Comfort Dog Program, the Tewksbury Police Department. Mr. Montori?
Mr. Chairman, the board has in their packet information from the police chief that we have received donations for Comfort Dog Program within the police department, something the department's been working on for several months. The breakdown of the donations for the program are as follows. Monadnock Labradoodles is donating the puppy, and it's valued at $3,500. Elizabeth Belcher is donating 1 week of residential puppy training valued at $500. Auntie Dog is donating training services valued at $4,109. We will receive 2-year supply of dog food that we don't have a value on that yet, but that's from Well Pet. Salem 5 is donating $500 towards the program. Walmart, we received a grant of $4,000 to be applied toward the program. And Tot a Lot Child Care donated $600 towards the program. So based on the amount that we know of donated to the program, it totals $13,209. And we would ask that the board accept all the donations on behalf of the community.
Thank you very much. Very generous. Questions from the board?
I do.
Please.
Thank you. Mr. Montori, could you please tell me what exactly the use of the comfort dog is? Is it going to be solely used at the police station? Is it going to be used within the schools? Is it going to be used going out into the community? How does the police?
It's going to be all the above, but mainly it's going to be in the school system with the school resource offices, other offices. It's going to be just used throughout the community when we have a variety of issues that they could have, but it's mainly going to be in the school system.
And where is this dog going to be housed? Is it going to live with an officer
one of the
similar
officers.
to?
Similar to the canine.
Canine unit? So one officer will be assigned, and it will more than likely be one of the resource officers if they,
I'm not sure exactly which officer will be assigned to.
but it will be one specific. I have no other questions, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I think I have one comment through you, Mr. Chairman. I think you're going to have a lot more donations to your Comfort Dog program. These are super popular, and everybody loves the dogs, and that's just what you see. Will we need to approve all future donations in this case, or will they open like a Chewy account or something people can donate to?
I'm not sure how they're going to approach it in the future. Most gifts and donations do need board approval, even if a gift account is open for that program, so they'll have to come back to the board.
Okay. We want them to be able to accept a lot of all the donations that they can easily, and I know people will want to be making those donations. So I think this is wonderful. It's an excellent idea. I think it'll be great for our community.
Very good. Mr. Johnson?
Nope. I appreciate the information. It clearly demonstrates a lot of generosity among the business community in particular, but I don't know if Elizabeth Belcher is in business or a trainer as a sole proprietor, but I would include her in that category as well. So a lot of people stepping up to benefit others here in Tewksbury. So with appreciation, I make a motion to accept with gratitude the donations.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous 5-0. Very good. Like you said, off to a great start. Very generous folks as well. So through the town manager, we'll follow up with a letter of appreciation to all. Let's see. All right, next is...
Can any comments be made on that?
Not at this time. Not this time. We're going to move forward. We have the residence section. So next order of business, new business is TDEIAC regarding appointments.
Mr. Chairman, with respect, are we doing the Bruce Schick,
No, we took that off the agenda.
the old agenda then?
No, all good, because what we're going to do is the open space has to nominate Mr. Schick, and then just formality, then we're going to come back to the board and we'll
I got
approve.
you.
So that's
right.
all. That's why we had to be
I
taken.
thank you. I
Okay.
apologize. for
All
that.
good.
All right. So 2 things for the board. You had asked me to ask the committee about student appointments because we had a request for 2 students to be appointed to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee. The committee, I put it to the committee, and they unanimously recommended accepting both students. Because that would be more inclusive and easier for the students to participate if they have a peer that comes with them. And that was recommended by one of the police officers who's on the board. So she recommended that, and everybody agreed. And Karen Baker O'Brien from the high school, from the school department also agreed. They all agreed. So my recommendation, based on the committee, is that we approve the 2 students be brought forward to join that committee.
Questions from the board? Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
I have one more item before.
You want to take a motion on that, or you want to?
Sure, I'm happy to take a motion, but I just want to let, there's more, but it's unrelated to the students.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Ms. Wellman, do you have the student names?
I do not. No. Mr. Montori may have them.
I do.
The students have not attended the meetings yet.
Yeah. And my intention is to appoint the individual as opposed to the category.
Category.
Makes
Sure,
sense.
sure. Well, while he's, go ahead.
Would this be till this June?
Yeah, they would have the same appointment schedule as everybody else, and would be apropos, since it would be end of the school year as well.
Okay, the first student is Lindsay Pettingill.
Pettingill. Yeah.
The second student, and I am going to apologize for not pronouncing this name properly, but it looks like Myson Wen, or Nigan.
Win, N-G,
Yeah, Wen.
U-Y-E-N, yep.
M-A-I-S-A-N, his first name.
Thank you. All right, so, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to appoint Lindsay Pettingill and Mason Nyan to the committee as student representatives through June 30, 2022.
I'll second
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
that. Aye.
Vote unanimous. Okay, you have another piece of business?
The only other piece of business is we have 3 ex officio members of the committee, and we had a clarifying question for the board. We wanted to know if so ex officio means by virtue of the office. So the town manager, for instance, is an ex officio member. So if he were to leave, it would be the next town manager, whatever. Whoever the town manager is that office. Our question is, do the ex officio members have the ability to vote? The tradition in Tewksbury is they typically do not have the ability to vote on these committees. And the other question is, the ex officio member or their designee, can they vote? And can they hold office of chair, vice chair, or clerk?
Comments from the board?
It's just a clarifying question.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, I'll just offer my comment. In my time here on the board, the function of ex officio was an advisory capacity in a non-voting position. But that doesn't mean it's chiseled in concrete.
That is also my understanding, and no one's ever raised that as a question before, and typically they do not hold those types of, vice chair, and so what I would say is, I would ask the town clerk if we have anything in our bylaws, and is there something, is the answer to that no? You're shaking your head. You don't know?
I don't believe there is. It's really, when it comes to ex officio members, when the board creates the committee, they can
Yeah.
say they're non-voting or voting.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we said.
In my role, and I'll just share this, in my role on the housing, the only time I voted was if they did not have a quorum. So I was there purposefully for that reason, because we were having problems with quorums when we first came. I mean, and I never voted because we always had quorums. So I don't know if that's something, but I guess that's something to be thought about. I don't think I'm prepared to make a decision on that one way or the other tonight, but that's me.
Okay.
Mr. Mackey, any
Good
input?
question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it wasn't defined at the organization, I would assume that it would, and there's no bylaw on it, I would assume it would follow what everything else has done. But again, yeah, not fully prepared at this time to move in on that question.
I'll just offer for the people, by the people, for the residents. So it seems like that's what we do for other boards is I'd like the residents to kind of vote and then have, chair, vice chair, clerk. That's just my opinion. So do we need to take a vote or you want to go back to, why don't we do some
No, I
home?
think that's fine. I think
Okay.
that's some guidance. I think we'll be okay. So I appreciate that. That's
Okay.
helpful. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you very much. I appreciate the indulgence of the board and your vote this evening.
Okay, very good. All right, last but not least on new business is 2022 Select Board meeting dates. So Janine has put together a list. I have no issues with it. I don't know if we want to have comments or if anyone identified a particular date that might not work. For me, it's standard stuff just for the residents. We simply put our meeting dates together for the year, and we put them on record, so we typically stick by them. If a date doesn't work for whatever reason, we can always modify it then, but typically we don't. I think we've done it very rarely in the past that we changed the meeting date. So what's the pleasure of the board? Questions, comments, thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the 2022 Select Board meeting dates as outlined.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, 5-0. And now, Mr. Montori, the floor is yours for the town manager section, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few quick things. There have been questions from residents, and in fact, some residents called the state delegation and congressional delegation regarding water issues in the community, water quality issues, and I just wanted to touch upon it. DPW Director Brian Gilbert is still here to correct anything I may say that needs further clarification, but some of the questions were in regard to issues of brown water, issues of whether the drinking water is safe, and periods of not having water at all in various locations in the community. Couple of things. In dealing with brown water, that's a result of an accumulation of materials within the pipe based on what the pipe is made of. We normally have brown water issues when we're flushing hydrants throughout the community, which we do on an annual basis. We publicize the flushing of hydrants through email, social media, etc. And that, because it stirs up the system from flushing the hydrants, there is brown water. And again, that's when we flush the hydrants. We also have brown water when there are water main breaks in the community. That causes, again, the sediments to be stirred up in the system. And if you're in the vicinity of where the water breaks, we have the brown water. Hopefully, as we continue to improve our water system, we'll see less and less of that. The periods of no water, again, going back to water breaks, that's when you'll see periods of no water on a street or an area. In order to fix the broken water main, areas need to be shut down. The water needs to be shut down in order for the water department to get in and fix the break. So that is what people may be seeing. And then as far as unsafe drinking water, the drinking water in the community is safe to drink. It's very safe to drink. We did have an issue of TTHMs being high in the community. In one of our quarterly testing, we had a result of 82 parts per billion in our water system of TTHMs. The standard is 80 parts per billion, so we were just over. Because of that, we had to send notices out to the community about the situation. Water was still safe to drink and still safe to use. Since we had that high test, we have done a great deal of work at the water treatment plant to bring that down significantly. We're moving in the right direction in reducing that amount, and when we do our testing next week, we anticipate that we'll be below the threshold. But because this is based on quarterly results in a given year. The Department of Environmental Protection will still see us out of compliance, but our test results are moving in the right direction. But the water is very safe to drink. There are no issues there. Another drinking water issue that you're seeing in other communities is in regard to PFAS, which is something that communities throughout the Commonwealth are facing. We are well below the limit of PFAS, which is 20 parts per trillion, and our finished water is at 7. So we are well below that threshold. The water treatment plant, we have a very good system in place. We upgraded the treatment plant several years back. We have a great staff, a well-trained staff, a well-trained chief operator, an excellent chemist. The deputy director for water and sewer utilities spends a lot of time at the water treatment plant. We are making PFAS a top priority to ensure we stay within the limits. We are constantly monitoring the raw water coming in from the Merrimack River for a variety of reasons. We do, if we find that we need to make other improvements to the wastewater treatment plant, we will do that. To the water treatment plant, we will do that. One of the things that we did talk to the congressional delegation about, as well as the state delegation about when we had them on the phone, was that we hope attention is given to the Merrimack River, that they focus on ensuring that the Merrimack River is maintained, maintains its water quality, and that issues such as overflow from the Lowell wastewater treatment plant because of the combined drains in Lowell is addressed, and that the city of Lowell has provided all the help they need to ensure that that doesn't happen in the future. And they got that message and they understood it. So I think we hit it from all angles, both the treatment of our water system and actually the water supply that's coming into the plant. But the news is that the water in this town is safe to drink, and people should understand that.
If there's any questions from the board, I always say, budget season is coming up. I know we talked about in the past, just to take a hard look if we need to do anything at all to improve. And I know we've made significant improvements over the last bunch of years, but, just repeat it again, it is the most essential resource we have in Tewksbury. Without water, we're all in trouble. So just take a hard look at that, I would ask. What do we need? What do we not need for improvements? Because it is timely with budget season. I know we've already talked about that in the past meetings as well, in lieu of the recent issues raised by what you just referred to.
Absolutely, and we'll be developing the 5-year capital plan. The board's support in using the ARPA funds, over $9 million towards water distribution, will go a long way, but we still have much more to do, and the engineering staff, the water division, and the director are always putting a good plan together for the future, and we'll continue to do that. But absolutely, it's a priority.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the board?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Really briefly, I appreciate your update on the water quality. I'm always concerned about combined sewer outflows and the Merrimack River water quality, so I appreciate you touching on that. I understand that some of the resident concerns with the brown water they're experiencing is also because of the pipes in their neighborhoods are very old. Is that correct? In certain pockets, and you've alluded to that previously in other meetings.
That's correct.
And so are those particular neighborhoods prioritized for replacement pipes?
Yeah, I mean, we have
process for that.
Yeah, we had a master plan of the water system. We have our priorities together to take care of AC pipe and 2- and 4-inch pipe that's in need of replacement. We target areas that have high water breaks throughout the year. We also want to make sure that we're not paving roads and then replacing water mains a year or two later, so we take that into consideration. There's just a variety of factors that go into deciding where we prioritize, but we have a master plan and we're following it so far.
Great. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, and I know we put updates to the Central Fire Station is next, so a lot of residents are asking kind of just where are we at with the overall construction and timelines and all that good stuff, Mr. Montori.
Sure. So right now, the project is scheduled to have substantial completion on 12/31/2021. It was projected to be a 402-day project. We're into day 310. We ran into a delay because of supply like we're seeing throughout the country. We had a delay in the windows being sent or being delivered to the site. We had a delay in the transformer for the project. It was delivered yesterday. We were supposed to have that in September. Manpower is always an issue, having enough manpower on site to do the work. So the project was delayed right now. Again, substantial completion is 12/31/2021. I hope to receive an updated schedule from the contractor tomorrow based on the transformer being delivered yesterday, and we'll see if that date is still maintained. The project is on budget. The original construction cost was $12.1 million. Currently, to date, it was adjusted to $12.4 million, approximately $300,000 in change orders, but we're still well under the $15.8 million that was appropriated for the project. Now, just to caution, the 12.4 is just construction. There was another $1 million for engineering and another $557,000 for owner's project management, plus there are other soft costs involved such as furniture, demolition of the old station, things like that. But we're well within budget for the project. The contingency left on the entire project right now, we have $88,000 in the owner's contingency, and we have $189,000 in the construction contingency. So we're sitting pretty well with a contingency for the budget. As you remember, we did authorize the borrowing of $2.5 million at a previous town meeting for the project, and to date, we have not needed to borrow that money. We've been able to stay within the other funds that we had available, so that's been good news, and we anticipate that to continue. But the project, again, slated for the end of the year. We hope to move the department out in January and into the new facility if all goes well, and we can stick to that schedule. The former Center Fire Station has been reviewed has had walkthroughs by the school department because once the fire department vacates the current station, the center school administration offices will move in there as a temporary location because the center school is being demolished in May as part of the new elementary school construction project. We also intend to move the school building maintenance operations into the fire station as a home until we can figure out a new facility for them down the road. And that's it.
Did you say 12/31, New Year's Eve?
12/31 New Year's Eve.
So we're going to be uncorking champagne.
Moving the fire department out that
station
night.
on New Year's Eve. Enters Christmas, right. Okay, oh, great. Okay, very good. Questions, comments from the board? Oh, thank you, Mr. Montori, for the
Thank you for
update.
that update.
Okay. How about, what's left, Mr. Montori?
I have just the town council invoice. Find it.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to move the town council invoice for October 1 through October 15 in the amount of $5,057.50. Second, as presented.
You beat them to the punch. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. It brings us to minutes. We have no minutes. So it brings us to board member.
Chairman?
Please.
When we talk about the minutes, I know that I still owe some minutes from my time, and I do want to just alert the public because we've had this as a blank item for a few weeks, and unfortunately, our new secretary has had to take some time off and due to a personal issue. So I just want everybody to know that we are working on them, but we had a little bit of a setback. Is that appropriate?
That's correct,
I know
yep.
that James
Yep.
is aware of that as well, but I don't want people to think that we keep saying next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the insight. Okay. So it brings us to board member reports. How about Mr. Mackey? We'll start on your side.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Ms. Stronach's point, we actually will have some minutes coming up for next meeting, sorry. Other than that, I have nothing to add. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How about Mr. Johnson?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I have 3 items. The first, I just want to ask my colleagues, my recollection is this is the time of year where we ask the town manager, under the terms of his employment agreement with the community through the select board, for his goals, and we need on our end to have a conversation around intention relative to continuation or modification of the agreement. So I just want to get that on everyone's radar, if my recollection is correct from my prior tenure. And if I have the timeline wrong, I want to be advised of that so I can adjust that schedule. But my thinking is that's the window that we have, and I think it's important we do that before the holiday season.
Nope, your recollection is spot on, because you're battle tested. So essentially, you're calling for the town manager review at that time, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, very good, yep, and we'll
So we ought
put that on the
to get
agenda.
that on the calendar.
Yep, perfect.
And I know the town manager wants some time, I think, to work on goals, because this is the time of year for that as well. So my second item is I need some feedback from members of the board related to the zoning bylaw subcommittee. Bear with me while I give just a little bit of history for you. You'll recall that the zoning bylaw was presented last May at the annual town meeting. It was defeated by 2 votes, and the thought process has been more recently to revisit that proposed change with some potential modifications. The committee that has worked through that process was resurrected shortly after the town meeting, and we've met, I think now 3 times in the last month and a half or so. At the very first meeting after town meeting, the committee has some new members, but the one significant issue or change in condition that was discussed at the committee meeting was that because the town meeting had voted in opposition to the proposal, if we choose to bring it back before town meeting within a 2-year period, the planning board needs to vote favorably on their recommendation in order for it to proceed. So that was of some concern to the committee in the context of they didn't want to do 6 months worth of work and involve the public for their input, etc., only to have at the 11th hour the planning board say they're not in support of the proposal. So while there's no guarantees, we did ask as a committee for the 2 planning board representatives to go back to the planning board and seek some feedback at the outset relative to their willingness to proceed with the process and having an open mind relative to the final product. Nobody can predict what the final product would be. But we felt the need to make sure that there was not a strong opposition conceptually to the process. So at our last meeting, it was reported back that the planning board discussed it and that they were in fact open-minded and remained open-minded, and one of the planning board representatives actually indicated that they had enthusiastic support for continuing the process. And I want to emphasize that they reserve the right to make the decision at the given point in time based on the final work product that's presented. So there's no guarantees. But what also came back to the committee was the request of the planning board, of this board, for a similar sign of support or open-mindedness, if you will. So I'm not capable or competent to speak for all of you. So I wanted to put that on the table this evening and ask for your feedback so I can convey that, and so my colleague, Mr. Mackey, can join me in that message. And I will just say, from my point of view, obviously, investing the time over the next 6 months or so, I am committed to the process. I believe it's a worthwhile process. I don't know what the final outcome will be, but I have an open mind, and I certainly will be supportive of the process, and how we present the final work product to town meeting is yet to be determined. But I think that brings some clarity to our intention, and I'd ask for your support in a similar manner so that there's no ambiguity on the part of the planning board.
Want
So-
a poll, go up?
I'll leave it to my colleagues
Please,
to,
why don't we just do a quick poll?
that's
I
fine.
would concur with Mr. Johnson. Yeah, I agree with you.
So kind of almost like a vote of confidence, if you would?
Sure.
100%, not even a question. Yep.
Ratify your process? Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And understand that whatever the final product is, the board has the right to make a decision relative to a recommendation at town meeting, like we would on any other warrant article. We don't know what it will look like yet. So,
And I did happen to catch a meeting that was televised, good stuff. I mean, you open it up to the residents, you're going to continue to open up to the residents. I think that's kind of where I'm going to just say fell short, and then maybe that's reality or perception, but I really liked how the committee ran the meeting, very open-minded. You're going to have many open sessions for the residents, and that's all good stuff. That's what we need to prepare to go in front of town meetings. So it's better to have those conversations, in the next 6 months as opposed to that night. But listen, we're going to get comments that night as well, because that's part of the process. So I thought you and the board did a very good job handling that, and you have a good plan moving forward. So, yeah.
all right.
I'd just like to make another comment, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I think that the work that is put into this committee has been voluminous, and it's been a long time, and we have tried a few times to get this across the finish line, and to leave that work undone, I think would be not in the best interest of this community and the people who have dedicated their time to this very detail-oriented work. It is not a easy lift to be on that committee, and it's very technical, and I appreciate the work that has been done and put forward. And I think it spans 5 years now? How long?
About that, yep.
So I would appreciate seeing this through. So thank you, committee, on my behalf.
Mr. Mackey and I will bring that message back.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the comments. The third item I have is just this week we celebrate Veterans Day, so I want to thank our veterans and ask our community to take the time, particularly on Thursday, to recognize those folks who have served or have given the ultimate for our benefit. We're able to sit in this room tonight because of that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. How about Ms. Stronach?
Thank you. Before I begin, I also have to thank the veterans, so I want to just thank Mr. Johnson. I'm sure it's going to be a relative theme, but I want to thank everybody for their service, and I also want to thank the parents who offer their children who are currently serving in our community as well. So the only two items I have is I reported out last time on our building committee. Our next meeting again is November 18th, and the events committee is also meeting on the 18th. And just a reminder to mark your calendars, tree lighting is December 3rd. And we have been in touch with the Congregational Church, and while they will not be holding their pie social, they will be holding a wreath similar to what they've done in years past. So looking forward to that event and thanking everybody who's participating and welcoming the new members that came to our committee and who were very enthusiastic about the work. So that's it.
I can't believe it's that time of year already. It's crazy, but all right, thank you for the updates. How about Ms. Wellman?
Really briefly, thank you. I too want to add my voice to thank our veterans, including Mr. Mackey, who's at our table, and let residents know that there will be a ceremony, as always, on Thursday, the 11th at 11 a.m. on the Common. They're all welcome to join. I think it was put on hiatus last year because of COVID, so it'll be nice to reconvene again this year. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee met on Tuesday? No, today's Tuesday. We met last Thursday. The days are flying together. We met last Thursday for our second meeting. We're beginning our work, and most of our work this year will be on assessing data, collecting and assessing data, doing some analysis, and doing some outreach. There's right now a plan for an Pride outreach in June. There will be a survey that we're going to be sending around to the community. We haven't decided what the questions are or how we will do that, but we're working on that, and we have a great committee, and Mr. Montori joined us on for that meeting. NIMCOG is continuing to do interviews for a new executive director. We should be wrapping that up shortly. And I did ask, since we're getting into the budget season, a few weeks ago, I think it was a few weeks ago, we accepted a check for from the delegation. Mr. Mackey and I were there to accept a check for our second ambulance. And that will run that ambulance, I want to say, a quarter, maybe, something like that. Yeah, maybe a quarter. And it's a continuing need in the community. And so I have briefly pitched to Mr. Montori for research, looking into what it might be to petition the state for a pilot program for the state hospital, payment in lieu of taxes. Other communities have that. You're laughing at me. Other communities pay pilots to that host state hospitals and other state facilities, and we don't receive anything for Tewksbury State Hospital. And it is a draw on particularly our first responders, and particularly during COVID. So there is a need in our community with our growth over the last 20 years to have an additional ambulance, and we need to find a way to fund that. And it seems appropriate that we petition the state, and rather than having it entered as a line item budget, amendment, and it kind of comes in as extra money, I'd rather see a sustainable long-term solution that we can see come forward. So if the board is supportive of some sort of effort like that, we should go forward if possible and petition the delegation. And that is all I have.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I'll piggyback on. I mean, it's just rather embarrassing, that what we have received or not received, or lack thereof, or year after year, the same exact check. So, I think we need to take matters in our own hands and have a working session and start driving that point home. How many years can we talk about it? So it's been very frustrating, on this board, seeing what's not coming in, especially in lieu of what the state has recently reached out to all the communities. I think we were only one of the very few communities to receive any dollars from the state. So I'll leave it at that, period. So thank you, Ms. Wellman. So,
Can I
Ms. Stronach, please.
I was not laughing. That comment was, there's also a loophole that while the state hospital is here, they also do not pay taxes.
Yeah.
And so I think that while we're driving that point home, we might want to, I know they're well aware of that, but it is a sizable property within our community that generates no revenue and has a huge impact on the financial services that we provide. So if we're going to ring that bell, I would
Yes.
like to ring it loudly.
Outstanding. Well, we're all in. Okay.
Okay. Hey, question through you for NIMCOG. We talked about 38, we talk about 38 every week. We really do.
Everybody talks about 38.
And we always recognize a state road. However, we still take action. There's a plan called the TIP. It's the
Transportation Improvement Plan?
Improvement Plan, a TIP. Thank you. And it's a 5-year plan, essentially. Think of like a 5-year plan where we get on the TIP and we basically say, here's the road that we need. Of course, we say all of 38, and we get sections. That's what every community does through NIMCOG. It's a series of towns and cities, in our surrounding community. So I do believe we have an update. I don't know if I want to go through, not to put you on the spot, Ms. Wellman or Mr. Montori, but do you have an update as far as when? I think we have... From Boston Road to Colonial to Old Boston Road, we have an update for 2022, which is this upcoming year.
Yeah, no, so the bid was awarded. I just saw it the other day. I don't remember the name of the contractor who received who won the bid, but it was awarded. And they will be doing design work over the winter, and they should be cracking into that road in the springtime, sir. So it'll be... For folks at home, I don't know if any of you have driven on 38 lately, but my teeth are getting a little loose. So that's not actually. But yes, they should be beginning work in the springtime. So the corridor's designed, they'll finish up the design work and the plan, and it'll be disruptive. It's a curb to curb down to the dirt. It's not just pave over what there is, it's dig it up and start over. So it'll be disruptive to businesses, it'll be disruptive to traffic. That's why we don't do the whole end to end all at once, because it can be disruptive. It will be disruptive. I think most people in Tewksbury will be really grateful to see the work get done and tolerate that disruption. And it'll include sidewalks on both sides, and it'll be a serious undertaking.
Okay, and maybe just to piggyback on the delegation, in lieu of funds for the state hospital, I think that might be an additional item to consider for our delegation, is the next set of road within 38. Don't quote me, but I think it's about 2.5 or 3 miles. I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but, I don't think that's right now on the 5-year tip right now, that other section of road. And we had a resident tonight, we know it, we drive it, your blood boils because we can't push it over. So we got one section done by the Lowell section. We also got the Wilmington section, so we're going to get a little more done here, but we're still going to have quite a bit of roadway done. So I think that might be another opportunity to say, ooh, let's not hold our breath for 5 years. Let's really hit our delegation here and see what we can do through our delegation through the state, because it's just a disaster. So, okay. And we'll end on a positive note. Anything else, Ms. Wellman?
No, sir.
Like you said, hopefully see everyone on Thursday at 11 o'clock, the 11th hour, the 11th day in the 11th month, to celebrate and pay tribute to our veterans, and Mr. Mackey included. So hopefully see everyone on Thursday. It's supposed to be a very nice day at 11 o'clock to honor and salute our U.S. veterans. So really looking forward to that. So with that being said,
Make a motion to...
please, Ms. Stronach.
My apologies, but we're not going to be meeting again until November 30th, and Thanksgiving will have passed. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank the residents for allowing me to participate on this board and represent them, and wish everybody a good holiday, and remind people to be careful on the roads.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good call out. Okay, very good. That's another positive note. So we're going to end on, see that, 2 positive notes. I love it. With that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
You do.
I have a motion and I have a second over there. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Good night. Thank you.